quick video on how to take our existing images and use Adobe Dimension to place the diffuser, the 3D render diffuser on the background. So what I was sent were these few files, and there's maybe 5 or 6 backgrounds. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using Adobe Dimension because it comes with Creative Cloud, Creative Suite, and it's a really simple program to use. So I've already built this to start out with. It operates in layers, so those are the layers that are in here. So those are what are called cameras, and I'll go over that in a second. But basically, what you need to do is, let's say, take this first one. We're going to put this over on the right-hand side. We can work on that. So all I'm going to do is find that over here. Looks like this is part of number 2, which is under there. So I'm going to find the layer that's the background, and this one's a smart object, so it makes it easy. So I'm just going to double click that, open up here in this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to either export or save as. I think it's actually easier to export as a PNG file. So I'm basically, if you already have the files somewhere, the background files, you know, I'm actually going to do this over here in the growth scalars and aromas, product images, diffuser. So for dimension, call these background files, and I'm going to call this line image 1. And this way I've got a copy of this that I can use over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to open the Adobe Dimension file that already has all of the objects. It's got the diffuser, it has a bottle, it has a box. And in this system, the way that it works is that you have a camera. So the camera, we have several cameras. I'm using one called Big Square. You can change locations, and each camera has its own settings. But anyway, I'm going to go to that camera, and you'll notice that in the camera you have something called a background. So you can toggle that background on and off however you want. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab that same little background. I'm going to go to growth scalars, product images, diffuser. There's that one. I'm going to open it. It's going to take a second to import. So now we've got that background file. So from what I remember, that text was over here on the left somewhere. Good thing is that when we export this, we'll be able to export them in pieces, so we can still move them around, but it'll be rendered, and you notice how it grabs all the background data. This is not using ray tracing. This is still vector. So it'll look good, but it won't look at its best until you actually turn on ray tracing, but it slows your computer down while you use that. So in this case, what I'm going to do is very simple. We're going to do this thing called match image. And I'm not going to set that one. And I'm not going to change the camera perspective. I'm just going to hit that one. It's going to basically match the lighting. I'm just going to go through this process of figuring out where to move the lights to match the background lights, basically. And the bigger the file, the faster it goes. So now it's masked it, saw it's light more blue, it's coming from that other direction. And then over here in my assets, okay, I've got a diffuser box. So I'm like, yeah, I don't want the diffuser box in there. I'm like, you know what? I don't want the essential oil in there either. I don't want that billows pipette. It's just like, you know, just like Photoshop where you can turn things on and off. So now from here, we go over here to the diffuser. You notice that you can highlight the whole thing. And this is the part that's a little different. So in the diffuser, I'm going to have to go down into the transform dialog box to move it around a little bit. So it's an X, Y, Z, Z being up and down, Y, Z being back and forth in depth, and then the location. So all I'm wanting to do is just scoot that guy over to this side, like right here. And I also want to do something to give us some room. So I want to be like, you know what? I kind of want to make it smaller. So we can add some, some smoke. Let's say smoke. Now, if I wanted to, notice that it matched what it thinks that perspective in, and it's done a pretty good job on that perspective. I can change the perspective. Notice how this line in the perspective seems to not be following exactly the edge. So I can take my rotate tool and match it by eye if I want to. So now that's getting pretty accurate. You can also pan up and down. It's going to come further up and down. Like that. And then this one is a shuttle tool. You go in and out. Make it further away along that perspective line. Okay. So I'm going to do something kind of like that. Maybe that's nice. So now that we got that the way we want, notice that it's a little weird, right? The glass imaging is picking up a bunch of, it's pretty transparent. That's mostly because we don't have our ray tracing on. And what that's going to do, it's going to redraw it based on the actual graphics in the picture. Yeah. So I'm not sure what's going on with the fuzziness. I'll have to figure out what's going on. But anyway, if you go to render, and you say, okay, I want to render it as a draft at half resolution and just see how it goes, you need to pick an export file name. I'll do this as a $1825 test, and then pick that big square, and I'm going to go ahead and hit my render process. So here, and this is, yeah, so this is the important part, is that it's going to move it to wherever I decide that's going. And in this case, I want to move it to graphics, or sorry, to my drive, Pro Scalers, product images, diffuser. I'm just going to save it in here as what it is, which is an RB18, which is the name, image one. Oh, sorry, this is where you select the actual thing. So I select the folder. The name's right there. So there's the cool part, is you can render it as a JPEG, and it's way fast. You do it like that. So I'm going to render it as a JPEG. And it's going to take a minute. Notice how there's some artifacts, but that one's done. Helps to have a gaming computer. And then I can open it, show in folder. For some reason, it doesn't just open. So now we've got a pretty decent render. That's draft quality, right? So if I want to go really high quality, it'll double or quadruple the file size. Okay. So now I'm like, okay, I'm happy with that, but I don't like, that part up there. We can do that later in Photoshop, but I think what's really important is that you can now go to, high, full resolution. We're going to use ray tracing, and I want to make sure I use my GPU. And I'm going to export it as a PDF, a PSD 16 bit. And we're going to not call this test. We're going to call this room 1, and I'm going to hit render. And what you'll notice is that it's going to take a few minutes because it's building this file. It could take up to, like, depending on the file size, it'll estimate. But this one's pretty big. It's 3,000 by 3,000, and I have a pretty fast GPU because that's a gaming computer. It's going to take 5 minutes. A little more than 5 minutes. Okay, it took about 5 minutes, or about 6 minutes to render that particular one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it in folder. I'm going to open it in Photoshop and show you what the output files are like. So here's what I outputted at as a PS2 file. So I'm going to go ahead and open that in Photoshop now. And as you can see, I got this. You have multiple layers. So I have material depth layers, object selection layers, and then material selection layers over here too. And those are for, like, if I want to select a particular material that was rendered. Each material is colored, so I can just select a particular color range, right? And then that will select the actual material that it had just put. So you can see every component in this entire thing has a different slight shade or whatever. There's two: rendered image denoised and rendered noised. So I'm going to turn those off. And so what I think is the easiest way to do this is to go ahead and shut off the background. And this one, I'm just going to take this layer here. I'm going to select all. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back to my see if I can find it. The main thing over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this layer, and right on top of here, I'm going to hit Control V. And now I've got a nice little diffuser that I can move around. It's got a shadow, and I'm able to transform it to whatever size I need it to be. Okay. So if you wanted to make them slightly smaller or slightly bigger, they're always at the same angle. But notice how it comes with its own, shadows, which is pretty nice. There's one little problem, which is that you see how it sliced off the shadow right here. So that means that's kind of your wall. Right? So I'm gonna put that guy right there. And yeah. Something I did that helped quite a lot with the image quality is that when I received these images from you guys, the image size right here, this was set to 100 DPI, and yeah, 100 DPI is nowhere near the right resolution. I would say 300 DPI is sort of the minimum for good quality, and then you can downsample it later. But from here, if you wanted to, it'd be really easy to just grab a, little thing like this and say, you know, something like that, and it'll probably make some decent smoke. You guys could do your own thing just to render some smoke from inside. It clearly doesn't have smoke inside here, right? But yeah, we could make it so that it was more foggy inside of there pretty easily, by isolating those layers that were back on that other side and just changing, basically isolating the base itself away from the glass, and then we can change the transparency. See what Firefly does. It'll give me a couple of nice options, hopefully. Come on, AI. Not perfect. But you kind of got the idea. You guys are fully capable of adding some smoke if you want to do that. But that's how that works. It's really not that hard. The key is that you can move back and forth quite seamlessly between Dimension and Photoshop, and usually it gives me 2 options, but apparently it's not going to do that. Yep, and that's how that's done. You can just continue to do that through these. If you end up not liking the lighting that's in there, but I noticed that, you see the light bulb lights in there and the different reflective lights. You can change the lighting in Dimension. It's a little bit more work. I always just hit match image. It seems to do a pretty good job. If I want it to be softer, then, you just, when you go back to the design, it's so laggy. Turn off ray tracing will help. I can go back to my big square view. And then in transform or environment, that's where it is. Under environment, we've got lights. And each one of these lights can be turned on and off to do different things. Then there's also what's called an environmental light, which is based on a picture. So you can upload a picture that matches the environmental light you want to use. It chooses one based on the colors. It actually uses the background image as its reflection. So that's how you turn those on and off. Yep. Let me know if you have any questions.